Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Proverbs, 26th chapter. As snow in summer and as rain in harvest, so honor is not seemly for a fool. So just like, snow doesn't fit in summer, right? And rain in the harvest, because that's usually the dry time. It's like it's unusual, right? It's not fitting. Likewise, honor is not seemly for a fool, right? To see a fool in honor, it just doesn't fit right. As the bird, wandering, and as the swallow, as the bird by wandering, and as the swallow by flying, so the curse causeless shall not come. Let's read that in the NLT. So it says, like a fluttering sparrow or a darting swallow, an undeserved curse will not land on its intended victim. NKJV, it says, like a flitting sparrow, like a flying swallow, so a curse without cause shall not alight. NIV, like a fluttering sparrow or a darting swallow, an undeserved curse does not come to rest. You see, it's not, as it says, it's not going to land on its unintended victim. So when you see a pharaoh or a darting swallow, which is like a bird flying, it doesn't just land anywhere, right? Just like an undeserved curse, it's not going to just land anywhere, right? Upon, as it says, on its intended victim. Somebody tries to put a curse on somebody that doesn't deserve it, it's not going to land on them. It says, a whip for the horse, a bridle for the ass, and a rod for the fool's back. So a whip is for the horse, right? To get it to go, either to move or to go in a certain direction. A bridle for the ass to control it, and a rod for the fool's back, right? Because a fool that does wrong, just like you have a whip for the horse and a bridle for the ass, you got a rod for the fool's back to whip them, set them straight. Answer not a fool according to his folly, lest thou also be like unto him. What happens if you end up arguing with a fool? Now you just look like two fools arguing, right? So understanding that he's not going to get it, don't get into it back and forth with him and be drawn into his madness. Because now you're stooping down to his level, right? Lest thou be like unto him. Answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own conceit. So here it's like, don't answer a fool according to his folly, lest thou be like unto him. But then again, don't let him get a big head thinking that he's right. Okay, so that's what it means by that. So it says, answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own conceit. So it's a balance here, right? On the one hand, don't get drawn into it, right, to where you got to stoop down to his level, but also don't let him go around thinking that he's wise in his own conceit. So the balance is that you put him in check quick, you don't get to some drawn out thing. You deal with them, you see that they're a fool, right? Then that's it. You leave off from them. So it sounds like it's contradicting, but it's not. Okay, there's a time when you got to put somebody in their place so that they don't go around getting big-headed, thinking that they're super deep. And then there are times when you just ignore them so you don't get drawn into it with them. Verse 6, he that sendeth a message by the hand of a fool cutteth off the feet and drinketh damage. You know what they say, drinking your calories is especially if it's sweet, is worse than eating it, because you can consume a lot more than you even perceive. But anyway, it says, trusting a fool to convey a message is like cutting off one's feet or drinking poison. If you cut off your feet, you ain't going nowhere. And if you drink poison, you definitely are not going anywhere. And that's what it's like to trust a fool to send a message. It's not going to get to where it's intended to go. You send the guy to, I don't know, freaking Washington, D.C., and you're wondering why he's all the way over there in Texas. Bro, what happened? It's going to be every excuse in the world that doesn't make any sense, but the thing that you actually needed them to do. Long story short, it's not a good idea. Verse 7, the legs of the lame are not equal. So is a parable in the mouth of fools. So it says here, a proverb in the in the mouth of a fool, damn, is as useless as a paralyzed leg, because one, they're not gonna say it right, and it's not gonna make sense. Okay, so it's gonna be like, like one that is paralyzed. He has legs, but he can't use it. So the fool got the parable in his mouth, but he can't use it right. It doesn't make sense. It's out of season. It doesn't even, you don't. Nobody gets what they're trying to say. As he that bindeth a stone in a sling, so is he that giveth honor to a fool. It says, honoring a fool is as foolish as tying a stone to a slingshot, right? Or NKJV, like one who binds a stone in a sling is he who gives honor to a fool. Because when you put a stone in a sling, you're given ammunition for it to be used. Just like when you give honor to a fool, okay, you're basically given ammunition for him to be exalted in his folly. As a thorn goeth up into the hand of a drunkard, so is a parable in the mouth of fools. I'll read this in the NIV. It says, like a thorn bush in a drunkard's hand is a proverb in the mouth of a fool. Or in the NLT, a proverb in a mouth of a fool is like a thorny branch brandished by a drunk. Okay. Long story short, it's not when you put a parable in a fool's mouth, as you can see in the past few verses here, it's going into that. It's gonna be pointless, right? It's gonna hurt more than it's gonna help, because once again, parables come forth from the wise, and they use it to prove a point. A fool might put forth a parable to try and sound deep and miss the whole mark, right? Miss the whole point. It says, the great God that formed all things both rewardeth the fool and rewardeth the transgressors, right? So the Lord is he's fair, right? And there's a precept that mentions that the Lord causeth it to, was it the rain or the sun to shine both on the righteous and the wicked? But then again, the balance to that is the kind of reward that a fool gets and the kind of reward that a transgressor gets is not the same as that of the righteous. Verse 11, as a dog returneth to his vomit, so a fool returneth to his folly. Right, so that's what it's like when a fool goes back to their folly. It's like a dog returning back to his vomit. The thing that came out of him. It's not a beneficial to anybody, right? So a fool will not leave off from their folly. In other words, that's what it's saying. They're going to keep on going right back to the same stupid behavior that keeps them recognized and known as a fool. Seest thou a man wise in his own conceit? There is more hope for a fool than of him. So one who's wise in their own conceit, they think they're wise, right? They they think they're the wisest person on the planet Earth. There's more hope for a fool than him, because you can't get through to him. You can't tell him anything. You can't correct them. All right. You can't admonish them. You can't reprove them. And as bad as a fool is, they even have more hope than such an individual. The slothful man say, if there is a lion in the way, a lion is in the streets. That's an excuse, right? They come up with the most horrendous excuses not to do work. As the door turneth upon his hinges, so doth the slothful upon his bed. So, like, if you if you twist in the knob of the door, to the right and to the left, that's like a fool loving to sleep so much. When you sleeping so long, you turn from one side, you sleep on one side for a bit. A couple hours later, you turn to the other side. What it means is they're always in bed, right? Which is to say that they don't work, right? They're lazy. They just lay around. The slothful hideth his hand in his bosom; it grieveth him to bring it again to his mouth. Meaning, they're so lazy to even and this is just to make a point, right? But it's saying, like, they're so lazy to even bring their hand back up to the mouth to eat. Lazy people take food in their hand, but don't even lift it to their mouth. Now, not literally, but it's just, once again, to emphasize the point of how lazy they are. The sluggard is wiser in his own conceit than 7 men that can render a reason. So what that means is a sluggard can come up with, when it comes to making excuses not to work, they can come up with some of the most, you know, uh, 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 unreasonable yet reasonable excuses, more prevalent than 7 men can render a reason. Okay, so they're always gonna have some excuse, right? It says here, lazy people consider themselves smarter than 7 wise counselors, because they think that, once again, there goes that example, right? There's a line in the way. They'll come up with whatever reason it is not to do work. Oh, my refrigerator is is making uncertain sounds. Let me check that out real quick. 5 hours later, they still ain't do it. Oh, let me go breathe some air real quick. I'm gonna call you back. Bro, what? He that passeth by and meddleth with strife belongeth not to him, or belonging not to him is like one that taketh a dog by the ears. So if you're passing by and you see, some strife or some back and forth that has nothing to do with you, and you go and get involved in that, it's like going and grabbing a dog by the ears. What do you think is going to happen to you when you do that? You're going to get a good, not so nice bite, right? Or attack. Likewise, you're going to get yourself hurt, getting involved in matters that concern you not, especially when it's strife. You might get an elbow to your nose. As a madman who casteth firebrands, arrows, and death, so is the man that deceiveth his neighbor and saith, am not I in sport? Right. So it's like a madman that's throwing around fire, right? Arrows and death. That's like the equivalent of somebody who, as it says, they deceive their neighbor and then they turn around and say, oh, I'm just joking. Right. That's am not I in sport. NLT says, just as damaging as a madman shooting a deadly weapon is someone who lies to a friend and says, I was only joking. The hell you mean you were only joking? The damage that's done is not a joke. Where no wood is, there the fire goeth out. Right. If you have a fire going and there's no wood, eventually it's going to go out, right? So where there is no talebearer, the strife ceaseth. So the talebearers are like the firewood in the fire of strife. Now, if you liken strife onto a fire, then the talebearers are the firewood that keep it going. As coals are to burning coals, and wood to fire, so is a contentious man to kindle strife. That is to say, if you remove the contentious man, you end strife. Just like when you try to start a fire, you go and get wood. If you want strife, go get a contentious person and bring them around. The words of a talebearer are as wounds. Right, that's how damaging they are. And they go down into the innermost parts of the belly, meaning that they if a talebearer or a slanderer says something bad about you that can really damage your reputation, it hits you hard, right? It affects you deeply. That's what it means by going down into the innermost parts of the belly, which is your mind. Right? Rumors are dainty morsels. They sink deep into one's heart. Right? The words of a gospel or the words of a gossip are like choice morsels. They go down into the innermost part. And in this case, it's like it's not in a beneficial way, right? So as it's saying, like the example they use about the morsel, like if you were to eat it, it goes all the way, down into your stomach and digest. But this is the wounds cutting deep, right? That's the point that's being made by this example. Burning lips and a wicked heart are like a potsherd covered with silver dross. Smooth words may hide a wicked heart, just as a pretty glaze covers a clay pot. So really, the pot is not made of silver, it's just covered with silver to make it look valuable, right? Just as it says, like smooth words can cover a wicked heart. He that hateth dissembleth with his lips, and layeth up deceit within him. Let's go into that word dissembleth. To recognize, to acknowledge, to act or treat as foreign or strange, to disguise, to misconstrue. Right? So he that hateth misconstrueth with his lips, with his words. Right? It says here, people may cover their hatred or disguise it with pleasant words, with their lips, but they are deceiving you, right? And layeth up deceit within him. So inwardly, their intention is not what they're showing you outwardly with their words. So you got to watch out for people like that. When he speaketh fair, he believe him not, for there are 7 abominations in his heart. See? So when he says, good things, kind and pleasant things, don't fall for it. Because deep down inside, he has, a bunch of various different, wicked things going on in his mind. Whose hatred is covered by deceit. You see, because they're hiding it with their words. His wickedness shall be shewed before the whole congregation. Eventually, they're going to be exposed. Whoso diggeth a pit shall fall therein, and he that rolleth a stone, it will return upon him. When you dig a pit, you're trying to set a trap. Eventually, it'll fall. You'll fall into your own trap. It says, if you set a trap for others, you will get caught in it yourself. If you roll a boulder down on others, it will crush you instead. So if you're trying to, there are times when you try to do harm to others, but it actually backfires on you. A lying tongue hateth those that are afflicted by it, and a flattering mouth worketh ruin. It says a lying tongue hates its victim. Crazy work. A lying tongue hates its victims. Why do you think a lying tongue, somebody who lies, would hate their victims? Because if somebody lies and through their lie you get hurt, and they go around trying to lie or scam somebody else, what do you think is going to happen if the victim of a previous victim comes around? They're going to expose the lies of this person and bring that shame and disgrace upon this lying tongue. So they hate him, right? And at the same token, if you lie to somebody to do damage to them, that is a form of hate. And flattering words cause ruin. Okay, because through that flattery, you eventually, get somebody to let down their defenses, and if they're not careful, they can be taken advantage of against them or to their ruin. And that brings us to the end of the book of Proverbs, the 26th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Rakha Kodash. Until next time, Shalom.